Okay, so this will be the first episode of Devo Talks, which got almost no responses on Twitter, so I'm going to be winging it here mostly. And I think a good place to start with is the origins of this YouTube channel, which basically come down to I graduated high school, couldn't find a job, still can't yet, and I need something to do with my time because reasons that I don't want to get into. So I just found Anthony Pitt on YouTube, and he does some really great meme montages, and I think he's the most famous one for Rainbow Six Siege montages. At the time, I had a $200 laptop, and I was playing a lot of Siege. I think I was playing 6 to 10 hours a day, and so I decided I've already got a bunch of clips. I can start recording with I can play certain operators, start getting clips for that, and I want to learn how to make I want to learn video editing. And so I started with that method. I imitated Anthony Pitt's style, well, at least I imitated the style of putting memes into a standard montage for humorous effect. And slowly, over time, I learned how to make better and better montages until you have the work that I have today. Which the best one is definitely my Rook video. I highly recommend it. I put a lot of hours into that. I believe I worked 6 to 8 hours per day for 8 days straight to get that video out, and the quality it was. The hardest part of that video would probably be the Pokemon skit up at the middle of it, because I had to get all the frames done, do the Photoshop, and then edit it into video form, frame by frame, moving everything one frame at a time. I was editing at 30 frames per second, and I think the entire bit's about 15 seconds long. So it was a lot of time spent getting that right. I had to do some adjustments to the sound effects to get that right. But overall it came out pretty well, so did the transition towards that. There are a couple other good ones. I recommend the Warface one I did, which I think was called Russian Call of Duty. That's a pretty good montage video there. I did a lot of sharp cuts. I used some Sniper Elite footage to add a bit more punch into the video, which was really good. So then I got to the point of Rook where I did the best I could do with a montage until I got Premiere Pro, which is what I'm running now, but I haven't been able to get back into Rainbow Six Siege, so that's why I haven't done any montages for anyone who's wondering. Burnt myself out in that game. You kind of do that when you play 6 to 10 hours a day. So I haven't been able to find a game that I enjoy and I want to get clips for so I can make a montage yet. Sooner or later I will most likely find one. So that's why I started game reviews. It was something where I could play a game, analyze it, which is really easy for me. I can do regularly. Play a game, play for a lot of hours, analyze that game, what makes it good, what makes it bad, write the script, get the footage for what I needed pretty easily, either while I'm playing it before I start writing the script, or purely from just getting those specific shots that I need. So I write the script, record all the lines, get to editing it. Generally while I'm editing it, I will come up with a bit or a few skits I can put in there. For Black Ops 1, I had most of the ideas as I played the game, and I put them to the script, so it was simple enough. So at the moment I'm working on the Fallout 4 script. It should be done very, very soon. They can start. I've already got footage recorded for it. Just need to finish the script, record the script, edited it. That should be out. Overall, I'm not too impressed with Fallout 4, especially when you compare it to Fallout New Vegas, which does every aspect better, except shooting. Fallout 4 has really good shooting mechanics, and you get into that into the review. So mostly I'm focusing on the reviews because they're easy to continually do, and because they're objective, I don't have to be. I still like to have some creativity in it, but I don't have to wait until I'm feeling creative. If I'm running out of ideas, I can just write the objective parts, do them, and make sure everything's looking good, which makes it a lot easier to do regularly. I can probably do a review every 2 to 3 weeks because I'm not relying on being creative. Whereas a montage, you have to play for a lot of hours to get the footage, which you similar have to do with reviews. You have to play a lot of hours to get the depth you need. But unlike a montage, you don't have to formulate this creative idea or some sort of theme to go through the entire montage to link it together. You can just write the script, break it into parts as I do. I break it into mechanics, world building, player experience, that sort of thing. So it's a lot easier to do that regularly, consistently. Other than that, I do plan on publishing some more skits if I can come up with some more. I also plan on doing some analysis on game mechanic design. In particular, there's the horde mode sort of design, and I want to compare Call of Duty Black Ops 3's zombie mode, because it's one of the most recent ones, to Killing Floor 2, because they both have the same idea of you have to fight zombies off for a certain number of rounds, and you buy your weapons through points earned. But one does it drastically different to the other, and they're both good in their own separate ways. And I want to do an analysis of why one works better than the other, in my opinion, and what each one does well. So that's another thing coming down the works. So, really, the origins of this came from having a lot of time on my hands, needing something productive to do, and needing a goal in life. So YouTube came around, and then once I realized I do like making videos, really love making montage videos, I decided I'm going to need a new computer if I'm going to keep doing this, especially if I want to make longer form videos. I definitely need a computer, so I saved up. I think I had $350. They got $100 from my brother for birthday and Christmas money, and then I got a $500 loan, and I was able to get this computer for $800, and I was able to get this microphone that I'm using now, which is a really good microphone. I cannot remember the brand. I think it's a Rode microphone. I could be wrong. And it's got a microphone stand, which there's a couple of issues with it. The plastic used to keep the metal bar in place has broken and fractured. So that can be fixed though. Just to be, I have to get another bit of metal for it. The quality's pretty good. It came with a pop filter as well, which is great. It really helps with when you use B's, P's, and there's another letter that pops in the filters. Pops in the microphone, not in the filters. So that's really good. That's what my initial setup was. I think anyone can really get a decent setup for around $1,000 as long as you're willing to buy pre-owned. If you want to start YouTube and you want to get a new computer, especially a decent one for modern games, you're looking at about $1,000 to $1,500. In America, it'd be about $1,200. Australia, it's about $1,500 to get a decent computer. And you have to factor in microphone, and if you're starting a gaming channel, game prices, that such. So yeah, it depends on the channel, what you're doing. If you want to do a more commentary style, you have to get a camera. You can do it without a camera, but cameras really help you want to express your personality. The reason I don't do commentaries, I don't think I'm very good at them, for one. Two, I have a hard time expressing my personality. I might, one day when I can afford it, have like some sort of costume or uniform and a camera and do some commentaries that way. But until then, we'll stick with the reviews, stick with the montages, and first impressions. I might do a few other things about game mechanics, depending on time. The other thing in today's episode would be Shock Doc. He wanted me to talk about best and worst games, or at least in my experience, best and worst games. I didn't really play many bad games. I think that maybe the WWE for GameCube was pretty bad. I was pretty lucky that way. But good games, because that's a very wide term. I think I'll go with games that had a real impact on me. One of them was Metro 2033. It was made back in 2010, and it's a really good game. Unfortunately, you can only get the original version on Xbox 360 now, because Steam has replaced it with the new Redux version, which I don't like for a couple of reasons. In particular, I don't like the Redux version because the lighting has changed, so everything's easy to be seen. It doesn't have the same sort of atmosphere, the sound or design in everything, because everything's bright, you can see everything clearly. It doesn't have this dingy design of these Metro City tunnels you would have after an apocalypse. All the weapons and the attachments you have in your weapons look perfectly clean. It looked like they broke into Activision's World War II locker, grabbed out all the scopes and the reticles, and everything's perfectly conditioned. It's perfect condition. It makes no sense. It's supposed to be decades after the nuclear war. So everything in the original version looks like it was handcrafted or recovered from the surface world. And so once you start removing these little bits that add to the feeling of the game, it really ruined it for me. So that's why 2010 to me is better. The reason the game has so much impact on me is that even though the dialogue's a bit cheesy, it's believable, and you grow attached to these characters really quickly until they die. They do tend to die quite often. But I do remember one scene in particular with it, which was a really good scene. Basically, you find this kid who's been separated from his mum because of, if I remember correctly, a mutant chased him away. And you pick him up, put him on your shoulders, and you have to try and take him back to the nearest station. When you do so, you have to go through these very old tunnels, and he hints. He says, if I remember correctly, he says, My mum always said to never use dynamite or guns in here because it's so unstable, the cave would collapse. And then the mutants start coming out of the ground, these sort of moles, giant moles. They come out of the ground and they start chasing you. You can shoot them off, or as I did, you can run out with a stick of dynamite, turn around as you leave the tunnel and throw the dynamite in. And when the dynamite explodes, the entire tunnel will collapse on top of them. So there's a good bit of game design because they hinted at what you should be doing to get through that section. And if you do it that way, it feels great. It feels like something someone could actually do, you could have done in reality. And then once you turn around, you look up, and this is the first time in the game where you have seen sunlight. Because you're in the train tunnels, you've never seen sunlight, and you look up, and there's a massive fan just slowly turning, and in it is the light from the surface world. It's the first time you see it, and everything's beautiful, and it's this very memorable moment. So it's such a contrast to what you normally see. It has another few interesting moments. There's a lot of paranormal elements in it. And one scene is that you have to walk through this train, this old rail line that no one goes down. And if you listen to the pipes, you'll hear this scream, which injures your character temporarily. But more interesting is that you have to use your light to find these ghosts, because if you touch these ghosts, you will die. And this actually happens in the book, or something similar happens in the book, where you have to avoid this ghost train. And that happens in this as well, is that you have to go to the side, and then next thing you know, you'll see this train just come by you. And it's a literal ghost train. You can see through it. You can see the poles through it if you shine your light. And then you see people, and you hear the people talking. It leaves a really good impact on you. And I really love that game, and I would love to play it again. But unfortunately, I haven't been able to contact... I have contacted the developers. They told me to contact the publishers, and the publishers haven't gotten back to me, so I haven't been able to get a copy of it. I think what I'll do is I'll pirate it so I can make a video on it because it is such a good game. And another game I really liked was The Darkness 2. And this is a very recent one that I've played, and I do plan on reviewing very soon. The reason it interests me so well is because you are this character that has all these abilities, because this basically demon is part of you, and you can use its arms to grab things like riot shields and poles and use them as deadly weapons, and it increases your strength. And this is linked purely to the story in the original comic. The way your character is balanced out is by the lights. Whenever you step into the light, this demon has to shrink away. It can't live in the light. And so when that happens, your character's weaker, you get a bit blurry, your guns aren't as accurate, so you have to shoot out these lights to remain as strong. This becomes really interesting once you start fighting the cultist enemies, because the cultists will carry lights on them so they can remove your superpowers and try and kill you a lot easier. And that's an interesting mechanic of how you make a superpower believable. How you make it, make your character vulnerable. Batman does this in a very different way, but making you have to rely on stealth because you can be taken out really easily if an enemy has weapons. That's why Spider-Man also copies the same Batman system. But Darkness does this very well by giving the enemies ways to weaken you significantly. That's also very believable for the character that you're playing and the abilities of the monster. It's a really good way of mixing mechanics and story together, and I was really impressed when I did that. Also, it's fucking awesome because you can literally grab people with your tentacle demon arm and turn them into a human fucking pinata while you're dual wielding 1911s and using a fucking riot door as a riot shield. It's awesome. So it's a really good game I highly recommend playing. Another game is Dungeon Keepers 2. It's a really old game and you can't buy it on Steam. I think you have to pirate it now. Dungeons 3 is very reminiscent of it, which is why I plan on reviewing it. I really like that game because it's basically just a simple strategy game. You dig out your dungeon, you build buildings so that you can get certain creatures to come into your dungeon. You use those creatures to attack another demon lord or a human's dungeon and take over the entire map, and you go to the next level. It has all sorts of gadgets and gimmicks, and it's a really fun game. Unfortunately, I should phrase that. Unfortunately, we don't seem to get those sort of ideas being published anymore. This goes much more about game industry, which I might talk about in another Davo Talks, because that's a massive thing. Same with games journalism. But this is saying I've been talking for 15 minutes, so I think this is where I'll end it. I'll cut out some of the fluff because there is a bit of it. And I will talk about games journalism and the games industry next time if I haven't spoken about it in another form, which you may find out about on Twitter. So go check out my Twitter, go follow me, I make all my announcements there. Also subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't already. check out my other videos. They're the main reason you subscribe. Davo Talks is a bit like a filler content where I talk about things off the top of my head. It's not scripted like everything else, which is why this takes much longer than it should. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.